Hi, Net. Welcome to our Women in Payment series. It's so great to connect with you today. Tell us a little bit about yourself, what your current role is, your background, and where your career really started off.
Great. Hi, Mackenzie, and thank you for giving me the opportunity. So first of all, just a little bit about myself. I live in Atlanta. It's just myself and Norm, no kids or pets to speak of. I'm one of five girls. I was raised by a military dad, and so I think that sticks with me, that discipline, because he ran us like little soldiers, all five girls, no boys. Um, so my role is I head up our enterprise account management team, which really drives revenue and growth and retention for some of our largest clients. Think about a Sportsman's Warehouse or a Hal Smith restaurant division or the Gap. Those are the type of customers that my team is responsible for driving revenue and growth. And my career started, it's kind of a funny story. I actually worked for a staffing company and recruited for payments companies and financial services companies and thought this is an interesting piece of business and I want to understand it better. And so there was an opportunity at one of those companies. This is my third company rodeo. I've been with two other very large processors before coming to Global, and had an opportunity to help manage their help desk as my entrance into the industry, and then moved into sales and account management. I've run probably all parts of the customer experience, implementations, that type of thing.
That's awesome. That's funny. My first job was a recruiter as well.
Okay.
Mine was more for tech, but we're kind of in a fintech industry now. So I fell in love with that side and also wanted to learn maybe more about the finance side. So very cool. I do know that you are a part of the Diversity and Inclusion program at Global Payments Integrated. So I'm interested to learn how we can encourage organizational change and individual support to ensure more women of color get an opportunity to advance their careers and gain leadership positions.
Great. Thank you, Mackenzie, for that question. Yes. So my second job, I say, at Global is that I do chair our Inclusion and Diversity Advisory Council, driving the corporate inclusion and diversity initiatives for the organization. And I think it's such a great question. And I think one of the things that we need to do is just notice that we don't have enough diversity and be intentional in that we want to expand that. Because again, diversity just breeds better outcomes, more creativity, more greater ideation, I think, across the enterprise when you have diverse perspectives in any part of the org. Sponsor a woman of color. How do we promote intentionally women of color and develop them into those promotional roles? So I think there will be more about sponsorship coming out corporately that will help us move that needle forward. You can be a person that recognizes a woman of color and wants to engage and understand what we can do to help them in a one-on-one. In fact, I think some of those one-on-one engagements are the most impactful, quite honestly.
That's really amazing. I really appreciate that you're a part of that, and I always want to learn more. So I really appreciate you being open about that. And that kind of goes into my next question of how can women support other women in the corporate world?
Again, a great question. I think one thing is just sharing, right? Sharing our experiences. And as we move up through the organizational ladder, leaning back and helping others. I also think challenging one another. Right. Just a brief story. At a point in my career, I was leading a team, and there was a young lady that didn't work on my team. This is at a different company. And their leadership saw some skills and talents in her that would really fit into the organization that I led. But I had noticed just in my own observation, some things that I think she needed to work on in order for me to feel like she would be the right fit for my team in terms of skill set. And we had what I call those quiet conversations, right? You pull to the side and you give that constructive feedback with intentional recommendations on what they can do to move forward. And she did, and she joined my team. We hired her, and she had a very successful career post that. So I think that leaning back, those quiet, honest conversations are really important, one woman to another.
I agree with that. And I've been really lucky to, have a lot of women surrounding me that want to build me up. So that's been really, really helpful in my career specifically. What advice do you have for women working in payments in the industry right now?
Well, I thought about this question. I really think beyond payments, I think just women working in business in general. I think this is applicable whether it's payments or any other industry that you may be in. One is you have to know who you are, right? Understand who you are, understand your strengths. And, oftentimes we tend to focus on our weaknesses, right? I say understand your strengths and hone those strengths, build out based on your strengths. I mean, the weaknesses are there. You can circle others, you can work towards them, but know what your strengths are and build on those to move you forward in whatever direction that is for your own career. I also think have passion around what you're doing. And circle around others that support your goals and pull them into your circle. And be authentic to yourself. I think that's so important. I think authenticity is a key to success. I think when you're authentic, people trust you. Once you're trusted, then you're credible. I think inauthenticity is very easily identified, and sometimes you can develop a sense that people don't believe you're true. And I think it's very hard for people to connect to someone that they don't believe is authentic. So I think authenticity is important. And then lastly, take care of yourself. I think as women, especially as women in business, we tend to just work hard. We don't decompress. And oftentimes we lose our ability to be creative. I know that's my own personal experience when you don't pull away and decompress and then come back. So, take care of yourself and decompress. It sounds rote, but I think it's really important.
No, I like that, especially, the authenticity aspect. When I first started my career, I graduated 2017, so still kind of new to everything, learning. But I remember my first job that we talked about, I was so worried, that they weren't gonna like something I did or something I said, because I'm very I'm an outspoken person. And then I just finally realized I have to be who I am, or, I'm not going to be happy in this situation. So it was fine to kind of learn and kind of grow into myself a little bit more in the workplace as well. So with, fintech growing at a rapid rate, I feel like technology in general, every time you turn around, something new is changing or evolving in the way we do things. What do you think will be the biggest trend in payments over the next few years?
Well, I think for any industry, and we really tap into all industries, it's really driving commerce, and it's really driving that client experience to bring commerce to your business. And I think anything that helps facilitate that from the client experience is going to be where payments goes. So for instance, biometrics, geolocation identification, things, like analytics, anything artificial intelligence, right? Creative marketing. We actually had a customer, it's a retail sports store. They actually were opening a big brand new store, and we're using athlete holograms, right, to get people to come into the store. So I think all of those things will drive where payments goes. And really, what I love about Global, we don't really consider ourselves a payments company, though that's where we are placed. We're really an entity to drive commerce. And I think those solutions that help our clients do that will have a huge effect in this sphere of this industry.
That's awesome. Yeah. I really like the part about the holograms. I've never seen that yet. So hopefully someday when I'm going into a store or something, I will get to.
I was at a museum and they did a hologram. It's a little spooky, I'll be honest. But it was really, really fascinating. So yeah, that was interesting. It would certainly make me go to the store.
Yeah. So I know, it's always good to have people like influencers or someone that you follow to get your news, to get updates. Do you have any recommendations for female, finance or tech influencers that, we should be following, or someone that you personally enjoy to follow?
Yeah, so I hope I'm not too long on this question because I thought about a couple of people. First of all, I'll start with our own company. So when you think about Andrea Carter, our CHRO, right, or Stacey Hughes, our CISO, or even Teresa Gangora that works with an integrated and head of our finance, they have been big change agents in our industry. And, we are starting to see more women in these C-level roles, but that's, I feel, somewhat new over maybe the last 10, 15 years. And so right within our own organization, those are influential women in payments you can follow. But for me personally, there's a couple of others that I follow, and I think partly because they're Black women in the industry that are really taking strong leadership roles at organizations. One is Colleen Taylor. She is now president of Merchant Services for American Express, but previously she was EVP for Wells Fargo Merchant Services. And she's sits on many boards, sits on a lot of community boards like Europe. So she's one to follow. The other one, interesting, she's not US, she's out of Britain. Her name is Paulette Rao, and she she's CEO for integrated in e-commerce for PaySafe. So very similar to the organization we sit in, and really has been recognized as the top 25 women influential in payments, top 10 in minority leaders in Britain. She's African and African Caribbean, so it's not African American as we typically think. But certainly I think she is someone influential in payments to look. And for those of us of color who in the payments industry really have not seen a lot of diversity there, is especially inspiring for me.
That's awesome. I've definitely started to try to follow more accounts and kind of expand my horizons as well. I think there's been a lot going on in this world, especially this year. It's been a crazy, crazy time. So there's always learning and kind of growing. I think that's amazing.
Right.
So what advice would you give someone wanting to pursue a career similar to your own?
So when I think about that, and obviously my career is leading our enterprise team, but really it's about leadership, and that's really how I've defined my career. I happen to be in payments, I happen to lead teams, but it's really leadership in general. And I think the thing that you have to do is be somewhat opportunistic, right? Opportunities will fall there for you. And, sometimes as a woman, our nature is we want to check all the boxes before we take on an opportunity, right? And sometimes our male counterparts, they'll just jump off the building and get their wings on the way down, right? And so, I think we have to be opportunistic and take advantage of those opportunities. And again, I think you have to know your gifts, right? You have to understand what those gifts and what those talents are. And say, I'm going to hone into what's my talent and my gift. I think you have to be flexible and adaptable. I mean, when I started at Global, day 2, we had our first acquisition. And 5 years in, I think I've been through 4. Right. So acquisition and merger. So you have to be flexible. You have to be adaptable. I think also you have to have a sense of humor. You have to laugh at yourself and allow others to laugh with you. Right. I think sometimes we take ourselves too serious and don't over professionalize what you're trying to do. I think, again, be authentic to who you are. And then you have to go get the expertise. So whatever you've determined are your skills and your goals, you have to have that expertise and then allow those skills to be transferable from one type of role to another.
So I know earlier we were kind of talking about that you recently saw a change maybe in the last 10 years of more women in leadership type roles, C-suite level. What do you think how do you think we could encourage more women to pursue these leadership type roles?
Well, I think one, when we see more women in them, I think, that frees women to say, oh, I can do this as well. It's the same thing when minorities are moved into those very visible leadership roles, then they can do it, I can do it. So I think first is being intentional in moving women into roles of leadership that are very visible for other women to see. And then back to what we talked about earlier, Mackenzie, the sponsorship, right? Intentionally identifying those women or those minorities that we feel like maybe for whatever reason, maybe unconscious bias, maybe just we're doing things always the way we've done them. We haven't identified those players, and then identify and work with them to help them move into some more of those visible roles, because then it sort of becomes a life circle, right? So you move them into roles, another young woman sees they can have that role, so you work with that person, you move them into a role, another young woman, and over time you will see that expand.
I love to hear that. I definitely am interested maybe in the future in a leadership role, and seeing all these great women before me pursue that definitely does make me feel like I also could have that opportunity too. So it's very cool. And what advice would you give to someone who maybe wants to become more involved within their organization? What would you say to them?
Well, and I think it's again, use your skills and maybe do something different than you normally would do, right? So for me, using the example of sharing the Inclusion and Diversity Advisory Council, it has afforded me an opportunity outside of just working with Global Payments Integrated to meet and engage with others through Global that I probably wouldn't have just met with them organically for several years, that I'm now able to engage and talk with. So it gives you exposure. When you will just take on a role, stand up and say, I'll lead a project, it can be a little intimidating. It can be a little scary, but again, we're going to jump off the building and get our wings going down, right? So take it on, use your skills, work hard, and that allows you to broaden your perspectives within the organization as well, and for people to see you more visibly also.
That's really good tips. I really appreciate that. I want to switch gears here and get maybe a little bit more personal to learn more about yourself. So who are the 3 people who have been the most influential to you?
Well, that was very hard. So I tried to bucket this question, Mackenzie. So, the first one I'm going to bucket into one category is my mother and father. So they were both very influential in my life. They're unfortunately not with us any longer. But my mother, right after she went to college, she lived in very small southern towns, married my dad. And he was career military, and here she is from little small towns over in Ankara, Turkey, which is where I was born, with 2 young ones, and now she's pregnant with another one. And I always felt like that was very courageous for her to be able to do that. She also was very involved in the community, and she was president of a civic organization, director of a community center. That's where I get some of my community and civic perspectives from. And my father, who just was a hard worker. And it's interesting because my father actually dropped out of high school. His family put him back in 3 years later, and he graduated, went on to have a great career in the military, but then went to college. He and I were in college almost at the same time, part of the time. And then he went on to have a great career in finance after that. And so just, determination, hard work, optimism is what my father gave me. So that's my first bucket. My second bucket is kind of funny, right? Because my friends, when I say this, they always laugh at me. Yeah, because and the reason I picked this person is because I think this person, individually, you wouldn't say she's great at any of these things, but collectively, she's made a great success, and that's Jennifer Lopez. And the reason I say that is, if you think about her, you wouldn't say she's the best dancer, the best singer, the best actress. She's beautiful, but not necessarily the most beautiful. But when you hone it all together, and she took all her gifts and she made them work as hard as she could make those gifts work. And I think as women, if we just take what our gifts are, and we don't have to be the brilliant one or the prettiest one or the most technical one. But if you take what you have and you just really hone it and work hard, you can be super successful. And I think she just demonstrates that when you think about her personality and her skill set. There's not one great thing about her, but you put it all together using her skills, and she just has this mega career across the world. And then lastly, the girls that I went to college with, my sorority sisters, and that sounds kind of trite, but these ladies have inspired me. I have a friend that was in the FBI. And she was just interviewed on 60 Minutes because she's one of 5 that are working with the FBI now on inclusion and diversity, and 3 are published authors. And I have one that was recognized by American Express for the Small Business Woman of the Year. I mean, these girls are doing great things. So they keep me on my toes to keep pushing forward with my own goals and objectives.
I love that, especially the Jennifer Lopez one. I'm definitely a fan. I don't know how you.
No one would think of that, right? They always think it's some profound person, but she really. I always get teased about that, but I really do feel like she's done what she's supposed to do with what God gave her. So
I agree. What skills have you learned over the years to better equip yourself when working mostly with male leadership or male counterparts?
Well, again, I've said this, I know this is sort of a theme in my conversation today, but really is being authentic. And I think also with men, no harm to our male counterparts, but sometimes you have to be really bold and you have to like kind of force your way in. And this is just sort of a true story. I love telling stories. It's how I get my points across. But a true story, I was at a meeting, and in the role I'm in, a lot of times, whether it's my clients or even internally, it's a lot of men. Sometimes I'm the only female, the only Black. And we had finished the meeting, and I came into the hotel, and there was like 10 men from the meeting, right? And senior level, all sitting there, talking at the bar area. And my first instinct was like, oh, I'm just going to go up to my room. It's all got. And then I said, nope, I'm going to go over and I'm going to have a drink with these guys and I'm going to engage. And so sometimes you just have to be bold and have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? And making your way in and being a little directive to get your points across, but never change who you are as a woman. Just be ourselves, but be bold and be courageous and be okay with being a little uncomfortable.
That's really good advice. This one's kind of an interesting, fun question. But what superhero would you most want to be like and why?
Well, I love Wonder Woman, right? I just, I'm not gonna, she's a bad, what, right? I just think she, she was powerful, she was smart, she could outdo the guys. But you know what, if you've ever watched the Wonder Woman story, right? I mean, she also, as a little girl, worked really hard to hone her skills. Again, right? It's taking your talents and your gifts. And she worked really hard to make them what they were. And so she's my favorite hero, a superhero. And I'm waiting to do Wonder Woman 1984. I haven't watched it yet, but that's on my list for the weekend.
Yeah, the first one was so good. I haven't seen that other one either, but I'll have to put that one on my list for sure.
That's right.
And then the final question, what is your favorite thing about working in our industry, in the payments tech industry?
Well, first of all, I think technology is what makes the world go round, right? And we really play a big part in that. But secondly is the stories I hear our customers. We had one customer, huge, 400 million in sales, and it was a restaurant. But that restaurant, the gentleman started that company, and now it's public and all that. But at the time, he started that company selling hot dogs out of his own truck. And 25 years later, it's a 400 million plus in sales company, right? I just find those kinds of stories, and there are lots of them as I work with customers, that I just find interesting. And to know we have a part in that, I think is really just fun, to work with our customers and to be a part of that.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to, deep dive into topics surrounding diversity, women in the workplace, and some great career advice. So thank you for speaking with me today.
Well, thank you. It was fun. I hope it was helpful. I appreciate being invited to the conversation.